Well, as we've just seen, Eskom is having to weigh up environmental concerns alongside power supply needs, and that bringing to the fore the urgent need for renewables in the country as a way to address the situation. A key player in the sector is Solana, and the company's business development lead, Ahmed Motara, joins me now. Ahmed, thanks so much for your time. So Solana provides residential and commercial solar solutions. So let's start with the demand picture. What are you seeing right now, given the energy crisis that we are facing in South Africa?
So demand, as I'm sure you can imagine, has literally gone through the roof. I mean, if I look at the residential sector specifically, and the area that we focus on as one of the components within our business, we've seen demand literally track the different stages of load shedding, and as load shedding increases, demand goes through the roof. So yeah, I mean, if you look at the past 12 months in particular, there's been a massive surge in demand for solar within the residential market base, and that to a large extent has been driven by the innovation that's come through in rental models that's made solar a lot more affordable. We also, from a Solana Energy point of view, work across commercial and industrial projects, and we're finding that there is significant demand and uptake from commercial clients, especially as they now begin to look not just at solar in terms of reducing their carbon footprints and helping to reduce emissions, but storage in order to mitigate the risks from an Eskom point of view.
I'm glad you mentioned affordability there, because accessing solar as a solution can be out of reach for a lot of citizens and small businesses to an extent, because the solution is still expensive for a lot of people. We did see government come to the fore and offer, a tax incentive, but many are saying that it's just not enough.
Yep.
Would you like to see government do more on that front?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, if you compare to other developing and emerging markets that went through power crises and the solutions that they developed, and if you take Vietnam in particular, Vietnam way back 3 or 4 years ago, I think, managed to install in the region of 9 gigawatts worth of solar exclusively within the residential basis, and that was driven primarily through innovative funding schemes and through government coming to the party from an incentive point of view, making it an incentive and making it attractive for people to sign on for solar. So if you look at it within the South African context, and in particular some of the incentives that they've rolled out, they're not enough, because even if you apply those incentives, there is still a floor to your market based on income brackets within South Africa, whether you're renting or whether you're purchasing these systems for cash.
How much of local production would solve the problem? Because part of it is that we're having to import a lot of the solar panels, a lot of the batteries, etc., which can push up costs, given what we're seeing play out in the Rand. If we brought that manufacturing locally, do you see that as a potential solution to managing the expensiveness, I guess, of solar in the country?
So I think possibly 2 things that I'd respond in that regard. The first, where we need innovation in South Africa is on funding and financing of solar. If you look at how our finance institutions provide financing from a solar point of view, and if you compare that, for example, to developed markets like Australia, in particular Western Australia, I think South Africa lags in terms of the innovation and the thinking from a funding and financing point of view. The second thing that I would add in relation to local manufacture, I mean, the vast majority of products that we work with are sourced out of China. That being said, we very recently had discussions with a local manufacturer of solar panels who are based out in KwaZulu-Natal. And the prices and quality that they are able to offer us now are comparable to what we are sourcing out of China. And the costs, for us, it makes a lot of sense, because if we can localize our value chain, if we can look at supporting local companies, it means we have got shorter supply chains, which means it reduces, the use of cash that's tied up within our supply chain. It means that you're creating, or you're helping to support the creation of jobs locally. So absolutely, I mean, I think for us that would be a massive win. I have to add, though, that the scale of investment that's required in order for us to produce locally in South Africa at a comparable cost price and a comparable performance level is significant. Where there are opportunities is if you look at importing different parts of inverters, different parts of batteries, and setting up assembly lines to begin with. So there are ways in which I think we can bridge the divide, but it's possibly something that I see happening within the medium term.
Because if we can get that right, the transformative nature of supporting the solar industry, there's a lot of wins there. You highlighted it very briefly, the creation of jobs,
Yep.
the need for upskilling, etc., which is very much needed in South Africa right now, given our unemployment rate and the economic crisis that we're facing as well. How does Solana play in that arena to ensure that we are seeing support for some of those transformational goals so that the industry can be supported?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we hear a lot about a just transition, but I don't think people on the street or people at home understand what that means. What does it translate to in terms of projects? We're fortunate in that from a Solana Energy point of view, we've partnered with South32, who are the large aluminium smelter out in Richards Bay, and ABSA. And being able to have the support of two really big blue chip multinational organizations has enabled us to develop a very strong focus from a transformation point of view, because through our partnerships with both of these organizations, one thing that we've been mandated to do is to look at opportunities across the value chain that are transformative, that are meaningful, that people within local communities are able to benefit from. And from a Solana Energy point of view, one of the things we did very early on when we set the business up was establish our own training academy. And that was not because, there weren't any other options available for training. We based out in Richards Bay, in KwaZulu-Natal, in the city of Umlatuzi. And if you look at that node, that kind of leads you into Limpopo, leads you into northern Mpumalanga, there is a dire need for these kinds of skills. So we set up within a specific location where we had done a lot of analysis with South32 initially in terms of identifying where do we believe the opportunity can exist. And through the Solar Training Academy, we've been able to bring young unemployed youth into the academy and move them onto a demand-led training program. And effectively what that means is we looked at where the demand for skills were out in the market and literally trained people directly into jobs. And through this program over the past year, I think we've now put through about 110 people through the training academy. And through Solana Energy, in partnership with and the support, and based on the support we've received from South32 and ABSA, we've created over the past year 71 full-time direct jobs. And if you look at the impact in terms of small black-owned electrical businesses that we've supported, it's been significant. And that transformation mandate, that transformation focus has been paired with a very clear focus from a business point of view. Where do you make money? Where do you sell your solar systems to? How do you recover that investment? And how do you create something that's sustainable, that is able to support the transformation efforts? And I think that's possibly what makes us a little bit unique as a solar business, is that we have got an incredibly strong transformation mandate that literally we pay on a 50-50 basis with profit. And when you're talking investment, when you're talking small businesses, it requires you to have conversations with partners like South32 and ABSA, where there's an understanding that this is a bit more of a patient play. We're not looking at a return on investment in a year. What we are looking at is impact. We are looking at, is this transition just? And can this program provide a framework for that? And one last thing that I'd add as well, Bronwyn, it's this opportunity has allowed us to also be quite innovative in testing different kinds of models as you look at supporting SMMEs. In South Africa, we talk a lot about SMMEs and them being vital, but the odds really are stacked against small businesses in South Africa. And when we looked at an area like the Northern Cape, for example, solar energy is kind of started out in the Northern Cape with the big utility farms, but there are no local solar businesses. There are no local businesses providing support into those utility farms. And when we went into the Northern Cape, we partnered with Solar Capital, who are one of the early IPPs in the area. And in discussions with them, we got to understand these challenges, and the models that we've developed for small businesses have been really innovative. I mean, we took 4 single-man electrical businesses out of Dar, brought them to the training academy in Richards Bay, and identified 15 unemployed youth that we sent to the academy at the same time. And when they got back to Dar, we put the 4 businesses together into a single entity in order to create a much more powerful structure, and brought all of these 15 youth into that model, and literally out of nowhere created a brand new business that we're supporting in terms of access to markets, in terms of access to funding, but literally providing a framework where you can show how opportunities can be incubated within different parts of the country.
So that kind of where you have been, where are you going now, given what you believe is going to play out in the solar sector going forward?
So I think, the one thing that the view that we've adopted is that, this boom that we've seen in the short term is going to kind of level off, and that what you're going to see is a more measured growth within solar. I think from a residential market point of view, we anticipate that you're going to see a lot more demand through corporates, in particular, looking at how they can provide solutions for their staff. That's where the innovation needs to come in. If we look at the residential market, it really is at a level where if there isn't innovation, you are not going to grow that market. And where the innovation needs to come in is how you make these products more accessible to consumers. And we've partnered, for example, with South32, where it's a really brilliant model. And effectively what they've done is applied an incentive to the cost of solar. So whether you choose to buy for cash or rent, an incentive applies which reduces your net rental or your net cash price, which makes it that much more affordable. And the way we developed the solution with South32 was from a corporate wellness point of view. We'd done research analyzed research that was done by the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. And it's astounding and quite frightening, actually, the effects that load shedding have had on ordinary people in terms of key measures like depression and anxiety. And if you're a massive corporate, and if you have got staff that are remote working, staff that need to rush to get home to a specific time in order to prepare dinner for the family, or to get the kids to finish their homework, you have an environment within your business that's incredibly stressed. And working with companies like South32, like ABSA, where we're applying these different kinds of models, is where we see growth. And we see that as a more managed way in which you can achieve the growth over a period of time. On the commercial and industrial side, that's a big part of our business as well. Where we're seeing quite a bit of development at the moment is on the storage side. Typically with grid-tied systems, a lot of our clients were looking at the cost savings, but because of the Eskom crisis, storage to allow them to be more resilient is really becoming quite important. And the final thing that I'd add in terms of looking forward is where we do anticipate demand is if you are exporting into the EU, or if you're exporting into a developed market, the requirements, and they're coming really quickly at us in South Africa, from a carbon footprint point of view, are quite onerous. And we foresee, and we've had early discussions with a number of players in this sector as well, that there's going to be a significant demand for solar within mining, within metal producing, any heavy industry where you are exporting your final product into the EU, and that's really being driven largely by either you comply or you lose the business, and that is going to help spur on growth within the market.
Well, on that note, let's leave it there. Certainly a lot of events and shifts happening in the energy space, and particularly that informing the growth of the solar sector. So I'm sure we'll be chatting to you soon again. Ahmed, thanks so much for your time today, though. That was Ahmed Motara, Business Development Lead at Solana Energy. And that's where I leave things with you for this week's episode of Africa Trade and Business. From me, Bronwyn Seaborne, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now.